Okay, let's talk about Southwest Airlines. So I went deep on this one. There is a lot of discussion online about Southwest Airlines.
Yeah.
Let's start with the very top line news. Southwest Airlines canceled around 2,000 flights. Now, amidst all of that chaos, there was speculation as to whether this had anything to do with a hastily announced deadline and then retraction of the deadline on Southwest saying that all of its pilots and staff had to be fully vaccinated, had to at least have one dose of the vaccine. Now, the cancellations came and immediately there was speculation as to whether this was some sort of planned, quote unquote, sick out by pilots and by air traffic control staff and others who said that the reason that they're not coming to work is because of these vaccine requirements. This was largely sparked by Senator Ted Cruz. So let's start with that and let's put that up there on the screen because I'm sure you guys have heard that. So Southwest yesterday canceled about 1,000 flights. Cruz, I want to be clear, Ted Cruz was the first person to say that it was because of the quote-unquote illegal vaccine mandate at work. Now that set off a range of speculation. The actual news of there continued to cascade with Southwest. Let's put the next one up there on the screen. CNN saying that they canceled an additional 2,000 weekend flights as all of this continued. Now, here's the interesting thing. Company came out and said that the cancellations were based on a couple of things, 3 things: air traffic control, limited staffing in Florida, and bad weather. Now, there was a lot of making fun of Southwest Airlines, Krystal, because there weren't any other airlines that were canceling flights. So it's
issues.
like, well, okay, like, so the weather
kind of
affects everybody. So this seems like a Southwest problem. Now, everybody was trying to debunk this one way or the other. From what I can tell, and I want to be clear, from what I can tell, it seems to be a confluence of all of these events, including the vaccine protest, but not all. So let's put this up there from Axios. Axios, Southwest Airlines specifically denies that a pilot sick out is driving weekend of delays. Now, they are blaming and basically admitting terrible management on their part and the fact that there's a lot of vacation time and staffing problems and the staff themselves are kind of being worked to the bone, trying to be able to pick up other people's shifts, and it kind of cascaded all into a complete and total disaster. But I did some digging on this. Leland Vittert, who is a reporter who I trust, and he used to work at Fox News, now he works over at News Nation. Here's what he tweeted.
He basically got fired from Fox for being too honest.
That's right. He said airline sources, yeah, exactly. So if if you're one of those people, you should trust what the guy has to say. Here's what he says. Airline sources, a mass sick out at FAA Jacksonville has caused a ripple effect in 1,000 flight cancellations affecting Southwest Airlines. Now, there is an email which was circulating, which shows that there was some sort of verification at the Air Traffic Control Center in Jacksonville in which they did acknowledge that vaccine holdouts, so quote unquote, were not there at air traffic control. But here's the thing. You'll notice that Ted Cruz and many other Republicans seem to be saying that this is a pilot sick out. There are some pilots, that's absolutely certain. I've seen text messages and others that have validated that. However, is it the mass cause and the single thing?
Yeah.
It does not seem to be the case because they're moving the goalposts a little bit because now they're saying, oh, well, it's air traffic control. Well, those people aren't pilots. They're air traffic controllers.
Right.
So there are some air traffic control ripple out effects that air traffic control staffing problems, some of which, I want to be clear, some of which is attributable to vaccine holdout, as well as some pilot holdout, as well as horrific management on the part of Southwest Airlines, that as well as what they claim is bad weather. I think I'm going to go ahead and put that into the dustbin.
The air traffic control thing would also affect everybody.
That's right.
So why that's the whole thing is like, why Southwest? And there's a couple things. It's also important to note, of course, Southwest says this isn't a sick out, but the union itself,
the union also said that.
Pilot union was very, very clear. They issued a press release. They said it was aware of operational difficulties, but, quote, we can say with confidence that our pilots are not participating in any official or unofficial job actions. The other thing to throw into the mix here is that Southwest I haven't flown in a long time, so I haven't kept up with like which airline is the best and which is the worst. They're all kind of like routinely terrible. But Southwest has been a mess.
It's always terrible.
This entire year. They had the worst on-time performance. This is from the CNN article we had up there. And the greatest percentage of canceled flights of any of the nation's 4 major airlines in June and July, according to flight tracking service Cirium. I think that's how you say that.
Yep.
Anyway, so I do think my assessment is essentially the same as yours. Southwest is a catastrophically shitty company. The same sort of like minor issues, whether it's weather or the air traffic control thing that other airlines seem to be able to work out, caused real issues for Southwest.
That's right.
That were, catastrophic. But I don't doubt that there are also people who are calling in sick that are part of this, who have kind of used this moment to make it
even worse also for Southwest.
So
it's all
piling
like a big
on
thing. Yeah.
is what it seems to me.
That's right.
I think if this had been sparked initially by just the vaccine mandate, because part of this is like the timing of it. The pilots union had also just challenged this in court.
Exactly.
These deadlines had all just come into play. So that timing is part of why that speculation, understandably started. But I do think if this was really a sort of concerted, intentional protest, there would be a wink and a nod to make it clear that that's what was really going on. Because a protest is not effective if you have no idea what people are protesting about or that it's even a protest.
Yeah, that's true.
So there has to be some sort of like, okay, and we're doing this and we're going to make it known we're doing this and we're going to continue to cause you problems unless we get our way. But the fact that they're so adamantly denying it without even like a little wink and a nod of like, well, maybe some pilots are, but we can't really say it's certainly not our intention. That also tells me that that is probably not the bulk of what's going on here.
Yeah, I think you're right. And that's why it's important to put it all together. So, I mean, you're going to see a lot of takes, a lot of people, here's what I love. A lot of Republicans very pro-union now, very collective bargaining,
guys.
Collective action.
Get on board. Welcome.
Well, yes, but the fact is it has to take some culture war stuff in order to do
course.
so. And the moment we start talking about wages, then I think we're going to be a little bit different.
Yes.
And it's the same thing.
Reminds me of like Rubio and the Amazon thing where he's like, well, I don't really like worker power, but let's push back against the woke HR department.
But I also saw a liberal tacit acknowledgement that this was, and they were like, how dare these Southwest pilots? And it's like, okay, well, I thought you were for collective action. So here's the deal. Collective action, generally good. Is that exactly what's happening here? We don't know. That's the simple answer. I have seen multiple pieces of anecdotal evidence, but that doesn't translate to the absolute reason. So, I saw a photo of a "Don't Tread on Me" flag that was hanging out of a Southwest thing. Like I said, lots of text messages, lots of anecdotal evidence from people who are pilots themselves, who have spoken with people who are Southwest pilots. And also there's a video of a Southwest pilot himself who is explicitly saying this is the reason, but then his union is saying that it's not. Now, there could be legal play at work here in terms of if they do acknowledge a sickout, they could be fired, vacation time docked, all of that. That was another reason that I saw that this might be denied. So that's exactly what's happening here. In general, though, it is interesting, and we should acknowledge this. I did an entire monologue saying that it was possible that 40% of the people who are unvaccinated would quit if they were required to get a vaccine, and that just doesn't seem to be the case. And I think we should acknowledge that. Let's put this up there from NPR News, which is that, the most recent research that we've seen in terms of places, private employers in particular, that have vaccine mandates show that actually very few of the people who said that they were going to quit actually quit their jobs. Now, I mean, it does kind of make sense, right, Krystal, which is that by mid-June, the percentage, at least in Houston Methodist Hospital, which kind of was one of the more higher places where a lot of healthcare staff didn't want to get vaccinated,
it was
like
a lot of attention.
2 to 3% at the end of the day of the people who were actually fired or resigned. That's 2 to 3% of their entire workforce.
Yeah, so
I guess it does make sense when you're going to make people pick.
Right, out of 25,000 workers, only 153 were ultimately fired.
Right.
Which is way fewer than what was initially expected. And yeah, like you said, we were seeing these poll numbers that were like, 50% of the unvaccinated, they say they'll just quit.
Right.
People were talking a big game, but when it came down to it and their job was at risk, look, if you've got a job that you like, it's pretty, we know the way that threatening someone's employment can be a very powerful incentive for better or for worse. And I even sort of feel that way if this quote unquote sick out is regarding vaccine mandates. Like, collective action means you actually like come out, you make a demand, you stand in solidarity, and you try to, you know, affect change. Doing it in this kind of like, well, I don't really want to get in trouble. I'm just gonna like, I'll post something on Instagram, but I'm really gonna keep it quiet. I mean, first of all, you're not gonna get what you want, because if you aren't launching a clear, direct protest with potential consequences to the company, then it's not gonna ultimately work out. But yeah, I mean, you have to be willing to take those risks. And we're seeing workers across the country that are taking gigantic risks.
We're going to talk about
We're going to talk to Jonah Furman about this, who, you know, listen, the cost shouldn't be so high for workers to take a stand and stand up for what's right. But you see workers across the country who do have very clear lists of demands, who are taking collective action in solidarity. So there is a model for how to do this and ultimately, you know, have success versus a company. I don't think they're ultimately going to get their way, especially because part of why Southwest put these mandates in place so quickly is because it is coming from the government. They are federal government contractors, so they have to abide by what's been laid out by the federal government.
That's a good point. And yeah, so look, guys, if that's what you're doing, you should come out and say so that I can cover it, so we can cover it properly,
talk about it.
And so then the news can stop debunking or not debunking, and everybody has to rely on what some dude on Twitter is saying, which I want to go ahead and say is not the optimal way that any of this should be spreading. So there we go.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching.
That's right. Just as a reminder, you can become a premium subscriber today. Watch the full show completely uncut, our reactions to each other's monologues. You get to listen to it, you get to ask us questions, all that good stuff. Link is right there in the description or at breakingpoints.com.
Best of all, great way to say screw you to the mainstream media.